you own the Houston Texans.
H-Town, baby.
It's the Saturday Texans rundown. All-Pro love for Derek Stingley from some former All-Pros. A former All-Pro at a position the Texans might be interested in. A former All-Pro at a position, did the Texans miss out on him? A villain from the past speaks, and nobody knows anything about Christmas. We'll get to all of it and more on the Saturday Rundown here, brought to you by Platinum AC and Heating. Let's start with All-Pro love for Derek Stingley from a couple of All-Pros. 10 Pro Bowls combined between Chris Harris, the former Broncos defensive back, and Darius Slay, and a couple of All-Pros under their belts as well, both of them believing that Derek Stingley was snubbed from the All-Pro team last year. Look, Stingley had a really good season. He finished very highly rated in some advanced metrics towards the end of the year that didn't take into account the fact that he missed part of the season. But missing as much as he did, he was not going to be an All-Pro. But he did play at an extremely high level once he returned from the injury. And if he has designs on being an All-Pro in 2024, it's also not going to be easy. Cornerback is loaded with talent right now. There's some really good players. There's some guys that disappointed last year, some guys that could be coming back from injury that could be back in the equation. It is a busy position, and to be one of the 4 best players, it's not going to be easy, but it's very doable for Derek Stingley. If you tell me a healthy Derek Stingley plays the entirety of the 2024 season or close to it, I'm going to tell you he has a chance to be an All-Pro cornerback in the NFL. Look, there's a lot of really good cornerbacks, including the guys that were All-Pros last year, like Sauce Gardner, like Jalen Johnson, like Deron Bland. You've got Trevon Diggs coming back from an injury. You've got Patrick Surtain out there, Jair Alexander, on and on and on. The list is long for potential All-Pros, but a healthy Stingley, the way that he played after his injury last year, certainly is potentially an All-Pro player if he stays healthy. That's the biggest thing holding back Derek Stingley here with the Texans, is his health. 4 consecutive football seasons where he hasn't stayed healthy. 2 in college, 2 here in the pros. If he can break that streak, stay healthy for the majority of the season, then maybe he is an All-Pro, and at the very least, he's a Pro Bowler. And it's always nice when 2 guys that know a thing or two about playing cornerback, like Chris Harris and Darius Slay, have some nice things to say about Derek Stingley. What about a former All-Pro at the cornerback spot that could join Derek Stingley? Stephon Gilmore was asked this week about, hey, you're still pretty decent, right? Like, why aren't you on a team, Stephon Gilmore? Well, the former Colts and Panthers and Cowboys cornerback said he's just waiting for the right opportunity to pop up. Throwing that through the translator machine, he didn't want to do minicamp and OTAs, and he probably doesn't want to do a ton of training camp. But also, maybe the money hasn't been there, and Stephon Gilmore is not signing up to be a backup corner. He's going to sign up to be a starter for somebody, and maybe that opportunity hasn't come his way. Could the Houston Texans offer that to him? I don't think so. Okay, I don't think so. Kamari Lassiter had a really nice spring for the Texans and OTAs and mini camps when the media was allowed to watch. I think about the mini camp practices where he's toe-to-toe with Tank Dell down the field. He's toe-to-toe with Stefon Diggs down the field. I just don't see that Stephon Gilmore absolutely needs to be on this team, and he'd be in the way of Kamari Lassiter at cornerback too. C.J. Henderson had a really good spring, according to Nick Caserio. That's a guy the Texans are batting on, being a young guy, bouncing back. And the thing about C.J. Henderson, the other former top pick that's bouncing around, that's on the team trying to make the team, and Jeff Okudah, if Henderson or Okudah, if either one of them turn out to be a worthwhile opposite to Derek Stingley at cornerback 2, then you can extend those guys in the season and lock up that position for at least a couple of years for this team. Now, obviously, if Kamari Lassiter just comes in and plays really well, then that is taken care of from that standpoint. But I just don't know that Gilmore makes a lot of sense. Now, you get 2-3 weeks into training camp. He's not signed. Henderson's getting torched. Okudah's getting torched. You need Lassiter on the inside, or he looks like he's not totally ready to be the cornerback 2 opposite Derek Stingley. Yeah, call Stephon Gilmore and see what the deal is if he's still available. But right now, ahead of training camp, I don't see it with Stephon Gilmore. I think there's still a little bit left. I feel like the Texans are pretty comfortable with where they are at the cornerback spot right now. They were clearly comfortable with their defensive line situation. We'll talk about that in a second when I tell you how you stay comfortable with my friends at Platinum AC and Heating. Dwyane is going to take care of any of your air conditioning needs with Platinum AC and Heating, from repairs to replacements to that summer tune-up, making sure that your AC is blowing as coldest air as it possibly can and not working too hard, costing you money. Hey, the prices keep going up in the summer because you're running that AC a lot more. Do you know that it costs more money when the AC's working harder? Well, what if that tune-up gets it ready, it works easier, blows colder air, and you're more comfortable? Platinum AC and Heating can take care of you. The best prices and best service in town. My guy Dwyane is the way you need to go. If you have any AC needs, give him a call today, 832-777-3683. Put the number in your phone because when you need an AC guy, you need the AC guy. That's Dwyane at Platinum AC and Heating. Do the Texans need another defensive lineman? Well, maybe. Probably not, but maybe. Calais Campbell signed with the Miami Dolphins, a former All-Pro, an old guy, going to be in his late 30s heading into this season, and that is ancient in football years. Regular person years, you're just starting to hit your prime. In football years, Calais Campbell is ancient, but he's giving it another go with the Miami Dolphins. 6.5 sacks last year for Calais Campbell. And solid player, still got a little production to him, primarily a defensive end. And the Texans never really got interested in Calais Campbell. I don't feel like they missed out on anything. And you look at what Miami's got. They've got a bunch of guys coming back from injuries that are pass rushers. They've got some young guys like Chalk Robinson that need to get taught. Calais Campbell makes a lot of sense for them. The Texans, look, Campbell's going to be in the mix right away in Miami. He wouldn't be in the mix right away in Houston. You look at the top three at the defensive end spot for the Texans, Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, and Danico Autry, all those players better than Calais Campbell last year. Even if you want to go down the depth chart one more, maybe it's Derek Barnett. That's a younger guy that if he plays well this season, you start to put him in the rotation as a rotational player in the coming years. The Texans liked what they got out of him when they claimed him off of waivers last year, so no reason to get rid of Barnett for a guy that's maybe got one more season of football left in him. And if it's not Derek Barnett, maybe it's Dylan Horton coming back from his unfortunate cancer diagnosis. He's rang the bell. He's working back to getting back on the field. Maybe that's a young guy. So Calais Campbell, look, I think there's still some production. It made sense for a team like Miami who's having some issues with health along their pass rusher standpoint. But for me, Calais Campbell, even though he's a nice player, maybe still got a little bit left, the Texans are just fine with no Calais Campbell right now. Are you just fine with hearing from an old Texans villain? Not that far removed, this guy ran the organization. In totality, he ran the organization. He sat down. He's on a media tour right now trying to fix the image, repair it a little bit. Of course, I'm talking about Bill O'Brien, the former head coach and czar of the Houston Texans. He and Jack Easterby led a reign of terror on the Texans for a couple of years that put them in a rough spot. Now, ultimately, all of the O'Brien stuff was worth it to end up with the situation the Texans are in now. D'Amico Ryan, C.J. Stroud, Nick Caserio, Will Anderson, on and on and on and on and on. It was all worth it, but I did feel like it was fun to take a listen to what Bill O'Brien had to say about his time with the Houston Texans where he was in charge. He sat down with Adam Brenneman, who is a former tight end of his at Penn State, and Brenneman does a great job talking about college football and pro football now. And he sat down, of course, O'Brien, the head coach at Boston College now. So Bill O'Brien with Christian Hackenberg, former quarterback, Adam Brenneman, former tight end that he coached at Penn State, and talking about his time in Houston as the general manager and where it went right, where it went wrong. And Hackenberg asked a good question. Here's O'Brien's conversation about some of his time in Houston and taking over as the shot caller for the Texans.
What would you learn coming out of that?
Yeah, that was a tough time in Houston. We were a good team. We made some decisions relative to the organization to try to fill the GM role. We went after some guys. We couldn't get them.
Made some decisions to fill the GM role that was vacated after they unceremoniously got Brian Gaine fired. They, meaning Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby, the two guys that decided to go to management, say, hey, we need a new general manager. They thought they could get the guy that he talked about they couldn't get. They thought they'd get Nick Caserio, their buddy from New England, to come down there and Houston help them out. The Texans obviously were accused of tampering, trying to get Nick Caserio. They couldn't get him. They ended up finally getting Nick Caserio, and it's worked out pretty darn well for him. I don't know what it would have worked out with the Easterby and O'Brien regime in charge, but here's more from O'Brien.
And at the end of the day, we went a full year, I think, without a GM, really.
Yeah.
Myself and another guy did it. And then there was a year where they were like, well, we're just going to, we'll make you the GM. So in the end, that's not who I am. That's another lesson learned, right?
We know that's not who you are.
Like, I didn't really enjoy being the GM. I didn't enjoy negotiating contracts. I in some respects, I lost relationships with some of the guys that I was coaching, because I didn't really enjoy that.
Mixing
in
money,
my opinion, there's very few guys in the history of football that can ever do that.
Yeah.
And they're the greatest of the greats. And, I feel like I'm a good coach. I know how to coach. I think you guys know that. But those things I'm not great at. I can
Again, we know.
evaluate talent. I know how to evaluate talent, but I shouldn't be negotiating contracts and things like that. So in the end, that was a mistake by me. And I wish I really didn't do that to go.
I also wonder if he wishes he hadn't let Jack Easterby negotiate some of those contracts and take credit for negotiating some of those contracts.
To be really honest with you, I said, Bill Belichick, he was great at it. Andy Reid, I know he's got Brett Veach, but those guys, Vince Lombardi, those guys.
It's a short list.
It's a short list. And so, I just think that for me, keep the main thing. Yeah. Be a coach, and that's what I love to coach. I love to be in this meeting room and be the coach. We did when we were running it at the Houston Texans. Yeah, we made some controversial decisions, but
like trading DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of shelled peanuts. That a controversial decision there, Bill?
We made some good decisions too. We traded some top picks for Laramie Tunsil.
And threw in a second round pick for Kenny Stills.
Was one of the greatest left tackles in the history of the game, in my opinion. And he still plays there. I don't think he gave up many sacks this past year.
Yeah.
So there's other examples of guys that we brought in there that were really good players that we made decisions as when I was general manager or
the full conversation, a lot of college football, a lot of Penn State conversation. There's some good background on Bill O'Brien in there. And Adam Brenneman did a good job, and Hackenberg did a good job interviewing O'Brien. There's a little bit of Houston Texans stuff in there. That's the bulk of it. I wanted to hear him talk about being the GM, a decision that he kind of ended up making for himself by getting rid of Brian Gaine the way that he did, or helping to get rid of Brian Gaine the way that he did. But you can tell O'Brien's changed a little bit. He's hopefully grown up, learned a little bit. He says he's learned a little bit there from his time taking over the Houston Texans, and that he's just a coach. And he's at Boston College now after a stint in college football as an offensive coordinator at Alabama. And, hey, congrats to Bill O'Brien, back where he wants to be. He wanted to be in Boston. He's always wanted to be in Boston for the longest time. He's from there. He used to get the Boston Globe delivered to his house when he lived here in Houston. There was a chance that he thought he was going to be the Patriots guy to replace Bill Belichick when things were all said and done. Okay, so Bill O'Brien's closer to where he can be happier now. Wish him in his personal life all the best. Professionally, I'll be rooting for Florida State on Labor Day when BC takes on Florida State in the Labor Day game in college football's big opening weekend. Go Seminoles that day against Boston College. It'll be like Christmas if the Seminoles take care of business against BC. Speaking of Christmas, Netflix is broadcasting the Texans' Christmas game. I mean, they're going to, but nobody really knows what they're going to do for the broadcast or how the broadcast is going to work. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, talking about how Netflix is trying to still figure all of that out. Now, they've got a lot of time to figure it out, and they've only got 2 games that day that they need to broadcast. So an entire football season basically to figure out how to broadcast 2 games. Surely you can figure that out. Well, Netflix has to kind of ask some of the current NFL broadcasting partners for a little bit of help. Now, ESPN can't help them because they're stretched too thin with college football throughout the course of that portion of the year. So no help from ESPN. And then Florio speculates the other broadcast partners might be a little hesitant to help out Netflix and give them a good foothold, a good stronghold in NFL broadcasting when they've kind of jumped in to the conversation this year with the 2 games. So nobody knows who's going to be the Netflix broadcasters. The NFL wants people who are familiar with the game, wants it to feel like your regular NFL broadcast. So who are those broadcasters? I mean, if I could get Greg Olsen, who's not going to be the number 1 at Fox, I would try to do that. If I was Netflix, and then from a play-by-play standpoint, I would try to get Ian Eagle. Now, that's a CBS guy and a Fox guy. Are those 2 companies going to let their guys go work with somebody else on another platform that's a streaming platform that's trying to take away some of their NFL games, trying to take away some of their viewers? Doesn't seem likely. I'll say this, throwing my hat into the ring here. Netflix, you want me to broadcast the Texans game on Christmas? I'd be happy to. I'll take care of you. I'll help you out. I'll save you in this situation. I'm not as good as Greg Olsen. I never will be at broadcasting football, but dang it, we'd have some fun in the broadcast booth. Who do you want to see broadcast the Netflix game? Let me know in the comment section down below. Weigh in on anything that's happened in the rundown on this video. Appreciate you watching. The comment section, always active, always live after the video is up. Want to hear from you. And Platinum AC and Heating wants to hear from you. If you have anything wrong with your AC, I'm talking about small repairs to full replacements. The best prices, the best service in town is with Platinum AC and Heating and my guy, Dwyane. He will take care of you. 5-star rated by the Better Business Bureau. 5-star rated on Google and Yelp. Platinum AC and Heating. I've been hearing from y'all who've called them, how fantastic it was, how great it is to have Dwyane out, talk a little Texans with him, have him make sure the ACs are running fantastic. Dwyane will take care of you. Put the number in your phone. You may not need the AC guy now, but you're not spending 1 minute longer than you have to in a hot house with a broken AC if you've got Platinum AC and Heating handy for you. 832-777-3683. 832-777-3683. Keep it up here. Keep it in here as well, because when you need an AC guy, you need the AC guy, and Dwyane's not going to let you sit in a hot house any longer than you have to. He'll take care of you. So please take care of our sponsors as they take care of the channel. Appreciate Platinum AC and Heating. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.